greatest part of my day is when I see my players. I always say it puts a smile on my face.
If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, but that is the truest thing I've ever felt once I got into this coaching profession.
A lot of our athletes pick Division III because they're looking for that more than just athletics relationship.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a coaching conversation. I'm Dave Kaszuba, and I'm here today with three of the coaches at Susquehanna University. To my far right, we have Gabby Holko, who is the coach of women's basketball. To my immediate right, Frank Marcinek, longtime basketball coach for the men's team here at SU. And to my left, Coach Kuuipo Tom of the volleyball team. So what we're going to do is sit around today and talk a little bit, not so much about X's and O's, not so much about how your team performed this past season or what's on the horizon for next year, but let's just talk about coaching. And my first question would be, how do you measure success as a coach? Obviously, wins, right? But is there more to that? Can you quantify it, or can you measure it in some way other than wins?
I'll take a shot at it. I think winning and losing is very important to us. I think it's very important to our student athletes. But I think the student-athlete experience is also equally important. And the fact we're in Division III week, I think that the student-athlete experience is maybe a little bit more important at our level than at the Division II and Division I levels. And so wins and losses matter. Student experience matters. I think along with student experience, how they bond with their teammates, the type of chemistry they develop, type of long-term relationships they develop. And I think whether you can get them to reach their true potential. So they would be the 3 or 4 characteristics that I would use to quantify success.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Frank on all of those. The other one that I would throw in there, especially being at the Division III level, is the academic piece. I think that at the D3 level, our players are coming here for athletics, but also to get a great degree from a great institution. And I think being able to show that they can be successful in, say, a biomed, in sports media, and also be very successful on the court is something that measures success for them.
For me, it's all of that stuff and all of the everyday stuff. Like, especially at Division III. I don't know what it's like at the 1 or 2, but I know at 3, I've got to be a daily resource for those folks. And if I'm able to be successful in all of the areas, when I get the phone calls or when I have to sit down with somebody and try to work through some issues that they have, the X's and O's, right? They're important. That's why we do it, and that's important to the students too. But I think at the same time, to be able to help direct them and navigate these crazy waters between adolescence and adulthood, and then seeing what they do once they walk out the door. One, I wanted to be able to look over their shoulder and go, yep, I enjoyed doing that. And 2, I want them to be positive contributors to society on the other side of the gym doors.
Obviously, you all recognize that there's more than wins and losses. But do the students recognize that? And how do you get them to appreciate that more? Because I think with the student-athlete experience, they pour so much time into practice, into the games, into thinking about the games. And I think they could be defined in some ways in their own minds by whether their team is winning. How do you get them past that to think about success in these other terms?
I think a big thing with that is an everyday communication with them, is that you're not defined by your athletic experience. Obviously, a lot of us athletes and coaches, we try to define ourselves as wins, losses, X's and O's. But I think being able to communicate with them that this is, and I use this with my recruiting and how I recruit, is it's the first 4 of your next 40. This is where you become the woman that you're going to be in the real world, and just getting them to understand and know that just because we had a tough loss, maybe you didn't make a free throw, don't take it that personal, learn from it, grow from it, but don't take it as personal as this is my identity, because you are a daughter, you are a sister, you are a friend. And being able to just communicate that through everyday activity, as Kuuipo said.
Yeah. For me, I think it starts when they're sitting in the office and I'm recruiting them. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to find someone who is defined by the X's and O's. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they spend 18 years becoming the person that they are when we're recruiting them. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to change that in 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, getting the right person in who buys into what it is that we're doing here, I think that's the first thing. Because I don't know who that person is that I'm recruiting. Really, they send a representative out, mm-hmm. right? And I don't know who they are. I know who the representative is that they send out, but I want to make sure that I know that the person that's coming into the program doesn't really define themselves by that. And then we do that by saying, here's who we are. Here's what we believe in. This is our culture. This is what we do. And if you can fit into that, then the wins and losses will be a part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Frank?
Well, I try to tell the families when we recruit them that my job is to turn their young man into a man. And that's the end game. And I also talk a lot about teaching them how to take care of business. Mm-hmm. I think that for so many young people, mom and dad take care of business for them. And our job is to kind of cut that tie and teach them to be able to be a direct communicator when some things don't go well for them. So they would be the couple things, but wins and losses really do matter. Really do matter. Like, I talk about the student athlete experience, and it's always better when you win as opposed to when you lose. But we do, we set some other goals. We set some academic goals, and, it's very regularly, so we set some team academic goals, and when grades come out, my guys will always ask, Coach, the grades come, how did we do? Mm-hmm. Not how did I do? How did we do? Mm-hmm. So they're all bought into the collective GPA, not just their own GPA. And I found that through the years, let's say the four of us are roommates, and you three are great students, and I'm not such a good student. That the influence of my roommates, the influence of my teammates, has a way of making me more concerned about my academics. Mm-hmm. So that to me is a factor in the experience, and digging a little deeper beyond the wins and losses is learning to enjoy the success of others. The society we're in today is all about me. And when you can teach them to feel good about the accomplishments of a teammate who may have beat them out, then I think you're getting somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned, in the society we're in today with social media, for example, so many people are about promoting themselves, right, and thinking about them as an individual. How do you get them to buy into that team concept? Is it harder to do that today than it was 5 or 10 years ago? Do you see a shift in the mentality?
I think it's, again, being upfront in the recruiting process. This is who we are. This is what we're about. Do we get faked out? Absolutely. But I think that if we get faked out and they come in and they're a me guy, when they're around we guys, mm-hmm. We all tend to gravitate toward the norm. And if the norm in our program is about we, not about me, the peer pressure pulls them that way, or else they decide to go a different direction. So I think having a strong core group within our programs kind of keeps the ship sailing in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts about teamwork and getting people to buy into that collective?
Yeah, I think you got to get through to the individual first, because their parents have had a lot of influence on them for a long time. And sometimes what we see is the parent, and we don't really see the kid. So I think, like Frank said, when that person comes in and they start becoming a part of whatever our culture is, and most will, not all of them will, but most of them will become those things. And then they start looking about the greater good, the team, right? And we all make goals. We all have standards that we want to set. And like Frank said, I think everybody gravitates toward, okay, let's do it. And if they don't, and you have a good enough program, they'll challenge that kid. They'll say, hey, you know what? Here's where we are. Here's where you are. Can you sort of pick it up a little bit here?
And I would say, me being obviously the newer coach of the three that are sitting here, I would say we're in a process right now of building what our culture is within a program, and it's not as quick as just 1 year. I'm now entering season 4, year 5, and I feel that we are finally getting to what we've been building towards since my first year here. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. I think a lot of it comes through the recruiting process, and it's about building those relationships. And we all coach smaller teams. I mean, we're 15 to 17 to 20. And I think that we really get to know the individual. And that's the best part about my job, is getting to build these relationships and seeing. And as Frank said, there are some times where we get faked out. But once those women are in our program, they want the greater good for the team. And I think it is definitely harder. I even think about my playing years, and I think people question things a little bit more. But when you have a solid culture, everything, it kind of falls into place.
You talk about getting to know your athletes on a personal level. So how much time do you spend talking about things that aren't related to what's going on the court?
All the time. I would say my office is filled with my players 95% of the time, and very rarely, I mean, we are talking about basketball mostly when we're in season and trying to obviously draw things up in season. But for the most part, when they're coming by the office, I keep candy on my desk, and I think that's one of the reasons they come in. And I have my fridge filled with Capri Suns, and I know how to get them in there.
But then they run that off.
But then,
right?
yeah, right. They run it off. But I think a big thing is they feel comfortable. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is they need to have a connection with you as their head coach. And it has to be that you don't just care about them as a basketball player. You care about how they're doing in school. You care about what's happening at home with family. How's this relationship? And I think I'm a coach that I don't pry a ton. I want them to feel comfortable and come to me with things. But we just have everyday, ordinary conversation. And sometimes I have kids in my office for hours at a time, and I'm like, wow, this is just I needed to get this, and this done. But that's more important to me, is building those relationships, so that when they graduate this wonderful place, they're like, okay, I really enjoyed my time here, and this was just a small part of who I am today.
Do you think a D3 program allows for that relationship building more than, say, if you were at a Division I school?
From what I understand, I think it does. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of our athletes pick Division III, because they're looking for that more than just athletics relationship too. I spent an hour and a half today. I decided not to come in today because tonight we had this big thing going on, and I wanted to save my energy. So, but I spent an hour and a half on the phone with a player that just wanted to vent about stuff that had zero to do with volleyball. Just needed someone to talk to. So I sat on the couch and let her talk.
You find yourself being an ear for your players, Frank?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways, to be honest with you. I want to learn from them and build a relationship with them. And I ask them a lot of questions, because Kuuipo and I are not teenagers any longer, and we're dealing with teenagers.
Yeah.
And if you don't change with the times, you better get out of the way. And so the relationship part of it is really key. I think on the male side, I probably talk to my guys more about sports maybe than on the female side. My like this afternoon, for probably 45 minutes to an hour, had 3 guys in my office, and all they wanted to do was talk about basketball. So I think that it's, I think it depends on your clientele, but I think they know that you're there for them and want to be a part of their life when needed. As Gabby said, I'm not a prior. I don't try to plug myself into their life, but if they need somebody, I'm here. And I always say that in our scheme within our program, I'm probably like the father, now the grandfather, and then my assistant coaches are like the big brother. So there's stuff they'll come and talk to my assistant coaches about that they are probably not comfortable talking with me about. But the greatest part of my day is when I see my players. I always say it puts a smile on my face. And if I'm having a bad day and down the hall come 3 of my players, my day has just gotten better. And the people at the Division I level, I know won't tell you that. We are fortunate at Susquehanna. We attract great kids who are a pleasure to be around. And so the time spent one-on-one or in small groups in our offices is arguably my favorite part of the job.
Do you feel like there's an obligation to be a role model for your players? And if so, what kinds of behaviors do you try personally to demonstrate in hopes that they would pick up on that?
Absolutely. You want to be a role model.
Mm-hmm.
The behaviors, that again, that changes. How I was 20 years ago probably wouldn't roll along now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have to keep. It just goes back with what we're talking about. We have to change with the times.
I definitely agree with that. I think we are role models. And I think I can connect with my student athletes. Obviously, I'm getting farther and farther removed from my playing years. I mean, I'm entering year 10 for my college coaching career. And I think that a big thing for me is I've always wanted to be my true authentic self. I don't want to put on this facade of I'm this, this, and this. I'm going to have bad days and I'm going to try to make up for it. And as Frank said, like when I have a bad day and I get to see my players, my mood changes drastically. When we get to be on the court with our players, obviously at the Division III level, our time with our players on court is very small. I mean, it's during our season for basketball, that is, and we don't have a non-traditional season. And I think being able to just show them like, this is who I am. I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm going to be trustworthy to you. And just the things that we really care about as an individual and trying to instill that within our program. And so that they can see that it's okay to be your true authentic self. And is that goofy? Yeah. Is that fun? Yeah. But you're going to have some bad days as well. So I would say, yes, we are definitely role models for our programs.
About you, Frank, are there certain behaviors you try to model?
Yeah, I think there's a number. In this day and age, with the number of ways in which we can communicate, I think people are poorer communicators than they've ever been. I think that they get inundated with communication and sometimes blow it off. And to be successful in life, I think they need to be a good communicator and a prompt communicator. So I'm very big on, if the rules are, if I text you, I expect a response quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you text me, I'll respond quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. I think, in our sports, that your team will take the lead from your behavior. And while we all get caught up in the moment, I think composure is really a key attribute to display so that your players follow your lead in that regard. And the third one, I think, is consistency. I think being consistent in your approach is really important. One, so you know what you're getting, but I think consistency leads to long-term success. So we really talk about, exhibiting consistency in all we do, both on the court, off the court, socially, academically, every way, shape, and form. So being a coach is being a role model.
Mm-hmm. Where does sportsmanship fit into the picture? I feel like in today's society, we increasingly see a premium put on trash talking, on taunting, on things like that. How do you reach your players and try to instill in them the sense of, humility is not a bad thing? Or do you try to do that?
I think all our teams at Susquehanna are very sportsmanlike. We've the Landmark Conference has had a campaign for sportsmanship since it's been in existence, and I always believe that we are one of the best exhibitors of good sportsmanship. I noticed some other schools that I don't think are very good at demonstrating good sportsmanship. I'll blow our own horn a little bit, but our basketball program is going to be recognized on Saturday in Atlantic City at the Tropicana for an award called the Schoenfield Sportsmanship Award, which is for all Division III schools from New England through to Middle Atlantic states. That's a very proud moment for me. Mm-hmm. And, sportsmanship awards are normally given to the teams that win 2 games. And to have a successful program and be recognized for your sportsmanship is kind of the epitome of what it's all about. So sportsmanship is really important. But, don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk in anything you do. Mm-hmm. Don't be a jerk on the floor. And you'll have your moments. We all get caught up, and we all get upset with things that go against us. But I think it's important that you learn to maybe vent and let it go. And so sportsmanship is very high on our list of standards.
Coach Holko, any thoughts on sportsmanship?
No, I would agree with Frank. I think that all of our programs here have great sportsmanship. And I think it's, as Frank said, don't be a jerk. I think that that's the best thing. And I hear him say that, a lot. I think it's a good way to live by. I think just be a good stand-up human. And I think it's great. I think showing some passion, I think from a women's standpoint, I think in the men's game, and I know this has been a topic of discussion just late because of the Final Four.
Yep.
Caitlin Clark, who is arguably she is the best women's basketball player that I have seen, and I had the chance to see her play live at the Final Four. She is very, as people would say, show-offy. And I think that for women, we see that a lot as, like, you see a lot of women get teed up in the game of basketball because they're showing emotion, where the same action wouldn't get that type of action in the men's game. So I think it's good for women's sports to show some of that a little bit, but you could still have great sportsmanship with being able to show passion for your game.
My superpower is calling out bad sportsmanship. And it's probably one of the things that gets me in trouble a lot because I don't have a filter when I do it. And my team, I feel bad for them because I always pound into them about being good sportsmen. We have our nemesis teams that we'll run into, and we always practice act like you've been here before. Just act like you've been before. Great, be excited, turn it towards your team. Be pumped up, be a dude. I don't care. Just don't be a bad sportsman. Don't be a bad sportsman to the team. Don't be a bad sportsman to the ref, because I'll sub you out real quick. We'll have a seat. You can sit with me, and we'll have a discussion over it. I think it's important that they take that kind of an attitude out into life, right?
I think that's the best thing. And we do that with our program as well, is use that excitement towards your team, because that's the best way that you can get your entire team going. And I think that especially on a basketball and volleyball, I think seeing your bench celebrate that way, because they're seeing somebody on the court feel that excitement. And I think that was a really good nugget that you just shared right there.
Let's talk about how you sort of see yourself holistically as a coach. I think back to years ago, the U.S. Army had a slogan: "It's not a job, it's an adventure," right? You see your position as more than a job, and if so, what do you see it as? I'm sure it's an adventure sometimes, but is there another word that you might throw in there?
It's a passion. It's absolutely a passion, and I think, I can't speak for Gabby and Kuuipo, but I think I have the greatest job of anybody. And to the point where people keep saying, "When are you going to hang it up? When have you?" And it's like, I must be a real nerd because I don't know what else I would do. Like, I'll go home tonight and talk to my wife for 15 minutes, and then I'll get into doing something basketball related. It's what I do. It shouldn't be how you're defined. I hope it's not how I'm defined, but it's what I do. It's the passion that I have, and so I don't see it as an adventure. I see it as a passion.
Other words that come to mind: vocation, maybe?
Lifestyle.
Is it a calling, a lifestyle?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a lifestyle. I mean, I grew up playing a ton of different sports. Basketball was my life, though. And I know we say we don't want to define ourselves by it, but as Frank said, I'm also a nerd, where it's like, I just live, dream, eat, sleep basketball. And I never get sick of it. And that's one thing that people say is like, "Oh, are you sick of it?" Like, you're doing it all the time. You work 24/7. And no, I think that, I know, as corny as it sounds, when they say that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, but that is the truest thing I've ever felt once I got into this coaching profession. I think that when you really do find your passion, as Frank said, this isn't work. This is, I would agree, we have the best job in the world.
I think passion. It's right there, and I don't. This isn't my livelihood. I don't need this job. I had another job before this, and I've retired from that, and I have a pension, and I'm good, and I don't need this. But I show up every day like a full-time gig, and I'm actually part-time, but I show up every day like it's a full-time gig for me, and I think passion is about the best word for what I do, and I think you and I have talked about that before. And, you can love something, and loving's great. I love sushi. I really love sushi. 20 steps from my office is a sushi place, and I would eat every day as long as somebody else makes it for me. But if I had a passion for it, I'd make it every day and eat it. I don't have a passion for sushi, but I would eat it you give me sushi, I'll eat it. I promise.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like that driving passion, and I don't ever see it. that's the thing, right? When we talk about this a lot, do you ever see it ending? And like, we know it will. I just don't know when. It might be an act of God that takes us out, but before we take ourselves out of it, for real. You got a little ways to go.
You're speaking about sushi. Let's glom onto that a little bit and lighten the mood. Let the viewers get to know you a little bit. Is there a pregame meal or ritual or superstition that you all have that you kind of make part of your season?
My team will laugh because I start the season, every season, I start eating pregame just an Italian sub. And it's normally from just a deli. I won't go to Subway. It has to be like, we have one in Lewisburg, Door Days. But just like a deli, get an Italian sub. But if we lose that game, I will not eat that Italian sub until we get on another win. And I change it up. Like if whatever I ate prior to that game, I'm a little bit superstitious with that. And it's just with food. It's weird. But yeah, so normally start with an Italian sub. But if we lose, then it has to switch it up.
Coach Marcinek, any rituals or superstitions?
I don't. As a player, I had all kind of superstitions and rituals. As a coach, I have absolutely none. I probably have a routine about how I deal with my team and when I go to the locker room, and, but I have no and it's kind of weird. We all live pretty far away. Kuuipo probably lives almost an hour away. Gabby lives probably 30 minutes away. I live 40 minutes away. So it's not like when we're here, we're here. So I don't go home. If I were at home, my wife would probably make me something similar for every game, but I'm lucky if I eat before a game. I probably have a piece of fruit and a couple honey stingers or something like that. But I do not have any rituals or any superstitions.
Coach Tom?
Nope. No, I'm just, my biggest gig on a game day is try not to be late. That's the biggest thing. And on Fridays, if we're home, I'll wear Aloha shirt because Aloha shirt Friday for Hawaii. So that's the only thing that I really do. Otherwise, for a game, I'm up watching TikTok videos or something until somebody goes, "Hey, you want to go down?"
Well, let's talk about after the game. You mentioned that you all live 30 minutes to an hour away. Is that ride helpful for you to unwind afterward? Do you do anything else that you try to use as a way to unwind? Because I'm sure once the game's over, win or lose, you have to be pretty amped up, right?
We go out and eat sushi. I take if Perlazzo's around, I'll grab him and my wife scores for us, and some of my friends will jump in the car and we'll go eat. And that's after every match. It doesn't matter what time it is. The big question is what's open, and then the ride home. Yeah, I'm usually wound down by then.
Sushi for either of you?
I'm not a sushi guy.
No,
he's probably some kielbasi.
He's a soupy guy. Soupies, yeah. See,
soupy, kielbasi, pierogies, halishki.
I would say I like to win or lose. I'm normally driving back to Lewisburg, and it's normally a silent ride for me. On the after games, I like to just be in the silence and just think of my own thoughts, whether it's a high off of a win or a low off of a loss. I really use that time just to kind of, as you said, wind down, decompress. But I enjoy that. That's kind of a good solitude for just, all right, we're on the sideline for an hour yelling, being excited. And I think that it's a good time to just get with your own thoughts.
I like to go out with my staff, have something to eat, have an adult beverage or two. And the drive home of 35 to 40 minutes is actually really good for me and probably better for my wife. Because, just having 40 minutes to decompress, you don't take it home with you.
Yeah.
And that's probably the greatest part about living not in Selinsgrove is just a chance to listen to some music and blow off some steam if you need to. But, I think coaches all have something they like to do, usually with their staff post game.
Well, I'll tell you, it's very obvious that all of you have a passion for what you do, and it's very obvious too that y'all get along and like each other, and that's I think that's a testament to Susquehanna and Division III and the athletic department here. And we thank you for spending some time with us today and letting us get to know you and about your philosophies about coaching and leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.